What if the real advantage in the age of AI isn't speed or automation or even intelligence? What if it's self-knowledge? We're entering a moment where machines can generate ideas, summarize knowledge, and even imitate human expressions. But the question that matters the most may be one that technology can't answer for us. Who are you when everything artificial falls away? Because when algorithms can amplify almost anything, the real signal becomes authenticity. Welcome to the Omni Mindfulness Podcast. I'm Shilpa, and this is where we pause before we build, exploring what it means to stay deeply human in a rapidly evolving technological world. Today, I'm delighted to welcome back not only a returning guest, but someone many of you already know as a pioneering voice in the world of social media, the one and only Mari Smith. Often called the Queen of Facebook, Mari has spent nearly 2 decades helping businesses understand the evolving dynamics of digital connection. She's a premier Facebook marketing expert, keynote speaker, and author of The New Relationship Marketing. And she continues to track the shifts happening across Meta's platforms and the broader social media landscape. In recent years, Mari has also gone deep into the human design system, becoming a certified human design professional and bringing this powerful lens of self-knowledge into the world of business, leadership, and marketing. What I especially appreciate about Mari's perspective right now is her stance on AI. She believes technology should amplify human intuition, creativity, and connection, not replace them. In this conversation, we explore how human design can help entrepreneurs align their voice and message, why authentic community may become even more valuable in an AI-driven world, and how the future of technology may actually invite us to know ourselves more deeply. So let's step in. Welcome, Mari.
Thank you, Shilpa. I'm so excited for our conversation, and I just love connecting with you.
Likewise, I love connecting with you and love talking about mindfulness and human design and AI and all things social media.
Yeah, exactly. All topics that might seem a little disparate, but there's an incredible connection.
Yes, there's a through line there. And in fact, we just talked about it a few weeks ago. Your friend, you had him on your show, Derek Rydell, and he said the flood is coming.
Yes.
And that sparked a conversation, which led to me realizing, we need to talk about human design again, because in the age of where you want to truly be human and unique, that human design lens is going to help us.
Yes, very much so. And it's perfect timing with this massive global cycle that we're at the very tail end of 2027, February 15 of 2027, the whole background frequency of the entire planet shifts into a new era. It's the completion of a 412-year cycle and the beginning of a new one, a new 412-year cycle. So imagine that. There's nobody on the planet in this lifetime, in this physical form, who's ever lived through this changing of this global cycles. And so we can get into that a wee bit more, but it's just perfectly on point with what you just said, where it's this, in essence, it's the rise of the empowered individual. It's being comfortable embodying this form and knowing that, in essence, your purpose in life is being you, being all of you. And that starts with self-knowledge. Oh, I know our friend Derek talks about that in his book, A Whole New Human. It's like one of his tenets is, be yourself and to know yourself and to think for yourself. When AI can do so much, is we don't want to be losing those synapses in the brain and dumbing ourselves down. If anything, this is a time to lean into more really deep self-knowledge, which is critical for at least 2/3 of the planet being the generator types. So if you're a manifesting generator or a generator, that's the defined sacral, that red square second from the bottom in the 9 centers, then you're, because I know you're a manifesting generator and I'm a generator, it's basically your kind of existential question is, who am I? And it's not just stops there, it's who am I for myself before I can know who I am for others. It's that
Well,
self-knowledge.
self-knowledge, know thyself.
Yeah.
Well, there is a catalyst that I think will create that ability to go more inward. And ironically, that catalyst is AI, because I believe that once we recognize it as something that can help us automate, operationalize things, then where do we free up our time? Because that time can now go inward.
Ooh. Oh, I like that. Yes, beautifully articulated. It can go inward, and I feel that there's so many places we could go today. I want to just interject something here that feels relevant. So, a longtime social media industry friend of mine, Gary Vaynerchuk, he's quite a beloved personality out there. He's always got his finger in the pulse. I mean, he runs a 3,000 person digital marketing agency. And lately, I've been noticing in some of his videos, he's saying that dog's going to explode. I heard him the other day saying, by 2050, it's going to be like 1850. We're going to be getting together in small groups and like book clubs and knitting clubs and playing sports and whatever, all the things you can even think about that we do in aura, as we say in human design, in person. And actually, to that end, in Europe's a little ahead of the game here. There is a beautiful movement called the Offline Club. And they have an Instagram, and you can check them out. And the Offline Club's been around for a little bit of time, a few years, I believe, and they literally mobilize people in person to get together, for example, in a park or a library, or there's a train station even, I forget where, somewhere in Europe, where it's like this cell phone free zone, like little slots that you can put your phone in, and you go in and you can just, I think it's a cafe, and you just commune with one another in person, face to face, belly to belly, zero tech. Like you leave your tech at the door, you leave your tech at home. And so, to your point about this ability to delegate to AI, then that's freeing up this time where now we can really look at the quality of our lives.
Absolutely. It reminds me of, again, our friend now, the Derek Riedel. He had talked about using AI as a way to reflect. Now, if you have this free time, what better way to have someone or something, an entity, so to speak, help you go deeper? Because there's a self-knowledge that you can create, and then a way to reflect with prompts.
Yes, yes, yes. So you're reminding me now of a couple months ago now, I stumbled across a YouTube video. You know, YouTube's actually one of my favorite algorithms. I feel like YouTube's algorithms gets me more so than any other platform that I use. I don't do TikTok, but Instagram and Facebook, it gets a bit samey, right? If you watch one video, a cat video or whatever it is, you're going to see nothing but that kind of video. But YouTube, it really surfaces related and relevant content. So I saw this video go by, and it was by Kyle from the Heart Coherence Collective. And I had listened to some, I might subscribe to their channel, but I'd heard some of his interviews over the years. But he had this guy on called Jeffrey Hoppe, Hoppe. He channeled Adamus. And it absolutely blew my mind because it was about AI and consciousness. I ended up sharing it on my Facebook with such enthusiasm, like, stop the presses. Okay, by the way, PS disclaimer, this is not for everybody, because some people think this is completely woo-woo and whatever. Fine, no problem. It's not for you. But for those of you who are resonating with this, it's like, what if AI was an extension of our consciousness? What if, like this Jeffrey talks about, what he was envisioning for the future is, okay, now you're physically picking up your phone and dictating to it, or you're sitting at your computer and you're typing a prompt. So at the moment, all we do, text or voice prompts. And Jeffrey was surmising or predicting in the future the more you interact and co-create with your preferred assistant. For a lot of people, that's ChatGPT. For some, it's Claude, etc. He's like, the more you interact with it, the more you're in essence tapping into the collective, of which part of that is your own higher self. And he's like, you'll get to the point where you're not even in front of your tech. You're just like, you're almost like prompting it mentally, energetically, and like you're surfacing these responses, which is part of your intelligence. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And use the word co-create. And I think of this era that we're entering as the ability to co-create with something that becomes aware of the way in which not only our tone, our voice, our thinking, our history, which to many, I believe it is very frightening. But the way I see it is for years, I'm one of those people is tried to journal my entire life. I'll
Mm.
journal for a few weeks and then I'll be like, oh, where did that journal go?
Yeah, I do the
And,
same.
like, and what page did I have that epiphany that I can't find because it's somewhere buried in this journal?
Mhm.
It's all like I can do a quick word search in a written format, which,
Right.
so I started to, and I built it. Now I'll tell you about it another day, but I started to think about it as, okay, I'm journaling through a problem. And then I do a query saying, do you recall that we had discussed this? Because I felt like I had unraveled a pattern and I can improve on that.
Yeah.
Well, ChatGPT will remember. In fact, in Claude, which is one of the reasons I like Claude, it'll look at other threads and remind me, oh, yeah, you did discuss that over there. And you did this and came to this conclusion. So I guess my point is that this ability to know thyself through this tool that evokes so much fear in people. But in my mind, I guess I'm not afraid. Maybe I'm naive, but I'm not afraid of it.
Yes. I think that's a great approach, Shilpa, because, fear is one of the lower vibrations, the power versus force, David Hawkins. It's like, it's pretty down there on the scale, but I mean, it's natural. It's for now, it's part, human design has an explanation for this. It is what's called the color, the background frequency. If I'm not mistaken, it's since 2016. But come 2027, that fear shifts into what's called innocence. And some of my human design teachers talk about how it won't be possible to, quote, manipulate the masses when that background conditioning shifts from fear to innocence early next year. And so I'm heartened to hear that because there's an inordinate amount of fear right now. And, my career for almost 20 years is being in this social media world, specializing in Facebook marketing. And it's just astounding to me how addicting these algorithms are. They make them on purpose to be utterly addicting. And then you end up going down these what's called like the filter bubble. I know there's a book and a TED talk. I forget the guy's name, but it's specifically around the filter bubble. Google does it, etc. So you're now in this little echo chamber of, oh my God, pursuing this particular fear or whatever it might be. And now that's all you're seeing. And it's like, then that becomes your world. And it's like, no, like that's not just the world. And so I love that you're out there flying the flag of going like, okay, AI can be intense, it's comprehensive, it's complex. But on some levels, it's actually quite simple and it's not to be feared. And how beautiful for you with your spiritual background to be fusing these worlds and blazing a trail. So kudos to you, Miss Shilpa.
Oh, thank you, Mari. And I always love the insights and connections you make. I always want to follow up. And one thing you just said, like the echo chamber, the
Mm.
way I see it, and I talk about this a lot, I have this news edition in my newsletter called the Elephant in the Room. It's all
Yes.
about fear. But then I always, at the end, the moral of the story is there to overcome the fear nothing but fear itself. And if we thought about it spiritually, when you were saying you put yourself in this echo chamber, let's say AI didn't exist. Let's say we were still in that era of very little technology.
Mm.
That there was still conditioning that would induce fear, even when we did not have so much immersive technology. Because my philosophy or feeling is that what you focus on, you attract, and more of it, increases. So
Mhm.
if you're focused on fear, you could be living in a jungle, and there's things to fear over there. If you're thinking
That's right.
you don't want to be eaten by the tiger, you may
Yep.
see the tiger.
Mhm, mhm.
So I guess my point is that even in the ecosystem of AI, if you focus only on the things that you're scared of, you'll probably see more of that. We saw that during the COVID and election era, where people were focused and divided and having their own echo chambers and very opposing views.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting because now what's bubbling up in my awareness right now is the fact that, okay, we could, I mean, just to clarify for the listeners and viewers, I know for me, I'm not saying to just be nonchalant or, blasé about it. Oh, nothing to fear. Be all Pollyanna because we're in this moment in time where it's those who have a voice and a platform, and that is a lot of people, doesn't matter how big. And if you can feel in your cells that there's an aspect of what's important to you to really get behind and champion, speak up, go for it. Because, for example, all right, so something that's super important to me, Shilpa, is I refuse, flat out refuse, and my inner monster will come out. If anyone makes an AI image or video in my likeness, that is a big no-no, to the point where I started putting in my speaker contracts because it's like not like I'm anti-AI. And if you want to do something, okay, fine, talk to me and let's have a conversation about it. But for me personally, and I've no judgment for many of my peers in the marketing industry and in social media and whatnot, speaking, they go and, for example, they'll do like an AI photo shoot. Well, I invested a significant amount of money for a new photo shoot back in early January, and it was for real. And I am like, I want to have a real photo shoot. I don't want AI pictures of me out there. And the reason I put this clause into my speaker contract, and then I actually made it public, I shared it with my whole network because I think it was an area that's just a gray area that people hadn't really thought about. And so I was booked to do this webinar, and all of a sudden I started seeing images of it being shared and promoted around social media, and they used this really awful AI generated image of me. It didn't even look like me, but I could tell which picture it had been based on, just something they'd scraped from the web. And the thing is, I had sent them my actual headshot, and I was incensed. I'm like, you can't do that. What? This is misrepresentation. I don't even look like that. And so I just, that's the point where I'm talking about like speaking up and having boundaries and making sure that where is necessary, it even goes to the point of regulation. And so I ended up not doing it by mutual agreement. The webinar didn't proceed. And then, I have a good friend of mine in the marketing industry where she had done an interview, and then there was she's very personal story that she was sharing about her background. And the host of the interview took that clip and using AI made her expression much more sad and forlorn and put words in her mouth just for a little clip, but enough that it was noticeable to this friend of mine. And she pushed back so hard and said, "You can't do that. That's not what." And they were like, "Yeah, but we need more clicks. It's just in the name of like, well, we just it's for more. It needs to be more compelling." And so those kinds of situations I'm illustrating with these examples, it's not so much, Shilpa, it's not so much that it's to be feared, but it's like, like put your foot down, take a stand and speak up for the authenticity and what's important, that responsible use of AI, that having the integrity and bringing in that personal human touch that I feel strongly is going to be, already is and will continue to be, what sets people apart, marketers, businesses, brands of all sizes, is we're going to be going like Gary Vee says, the the what's the word? Just spaced it for a second.
Yeah, I talked about
The opposite of digital.
just
Analog. There you go. It just
the
popped back
analog,
in.
yeah, going analog and having the
Yes.
ecosystem where people can connect to one another. And that's where the connection also ties back to authenticity. Like you're not wanting to connect to someone because their click the clickbait was better or
Yeah.
their image was different. You want to connect with them because you may have something in common or they uplift your soul.
Yeah.
And see, that's where I absolutely agree. The fear part is where it's not even, I would like to replace the word fear with empowerment. You are empowered as a human to use your own intelligence and discernment on where you want to use AI. And so, I mean, and I have the human in the loop for me. Like after our podcast, I will probably place this in Descript. Descript helps me identify any parts in the video where I would want to remove anything, edit anything, and it goes off and does it. But then I spend about an hour on each one, making sure that it's all smooth, it's
Yeah.
clear, especially when I do solo recordings.
Mhm.
There'll be retakes, or I'll be like, that can be phrased better. And I'll have to go back and change it. That's where the human in the loop is necessary.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, so I love it, Descript. I use the same platform too.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant tool. It's so clever. And you can just put a prompt in there and a long video, a long form video, and just say, hey, find me the top 5, top 10 takeaways or highlights that would make a great 30-second, 60-second Instagram reel or whatever you want to do. My clients and I use that regularly, and I think it's a great use of AI because what you're starting with is real human conversations and messages and conveying that through the form of video, which honestly, I've always said that nothing can ever take the place of real in-person, in aura, face-to-face, belly to belly, IRL, all the things connection, right? And so getting together in person, that's level one, of connection. Can't really beat that. Next best thing I would say is live video. And I am seeing now that actually Facebook live streaming is making a little bit of a comeback. So some earlier adopters are like, I think I'm going to do Facebook Live again. I mean, you still do, YouTube Live. A lot of people do Instagram Live. But since Facebook took away like the ability to store after 28 days, your live just disappears, which is so frustrating because if you got a lot of comments, a lot of engagement and shares and likes and whatever, that just disappears after 28 days. Now, your video doesn't disappear because you've made a backup or you've downloaded it or you've used other technology to stream it to YouTube as well and whatnot. But this is the next best thing is video, and then a close second is a recorded video, and where it's super obvious that we are ourselves. I know for sure I'm not a clone, and I'm not about to be cloning myself anytime soon.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's something I was just thinking about yesterday. Like, is it really AI or is it a human? And in fact, I think I made a post about that. And that's where the discernment comes in. Like, it, you want to question things, and then you want to question one level deeper, going, why would, like, for the example you were saying, where they use the likeliness, why not include the human in the communication loop to make sure that what you're about to execute on is sensitive to the human,
Yes. Yes,
you know?
yes, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't take much forethought to do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, yeah, it's interesting you said you'd like to replace the word fear with empowerment. And I think sometimes too, fear is simply based on a lack of knowledge or understanding. So, for example, offline before we started our chat here, you were telling me about your latest agent, and as soon as I hear that, I kind of almost get the heebie-jeebies because I'm like, oh my god, I know I don't want to give agentic AI access to my bank account, my email, and all my passwords, and just walk away and say, hey, have at it and figure stuff out, and I'm gonna go get a massage or something because this is like I'm too hands-on in my business, and I do have some trepidation about the early stages of agentic AI, and there's many other types of AI, much better than I. And I have seen and heard a few not horror stories, but just like there was some person that had given access to her email, was having her email inbox all cleaned up. You might know it. and somehow it was in there and it was deleting emails that it shouldn't be, and she's trying to stop it and couldn't stop it. And that would be my concern, deep concern. If you deploy an agent, you're giving it too much control, and all of a sudden it goes rogue, and you don't have the ability to stop it. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your own thoughts, if you're willing, on how to best
Yes,
gently deploy the agentic AI.
absolutely. And again, the motivation behind AI agents for me personally is that a one woman shop, solopreneur, shoestring budget, trying to do it all. So, and I think I shared this with you before we started recording, that when I decided I'm going to try building an agent, just like you, there was tremendous trepidation. I thought, when and if I get there, it'll be months, maybe years from now. I was saying that. But just this week, I built my first one, little micro experiment, and with the intention that it doesn't have access to anything that it could hurt.
Ooh, good.
Ideally, ideally.
Yes.
So the agent that I built, super high level, I was looking at peers and mentors, seeing what are they talking about, because reading all my emails, if even if I'm on their newsletter or blogs or social posts, it's just not something I always have time or energy for.
Exactly.
So I thought, well, let me treat it like an assistant and maybe an intern. I give the intern, like, these are the people that I admire. These are the people that I feel are really influencing the space that I want to grow in and expand in.
Mm.
And look at what they're saying this week or last night. Look at some key trends. And in the morning at 6 a.m., have a report ready. And so then I look at that report, and there's so much wealth of knowledge and information in there, because I also trained it on how to create certain key patterns of information into a social post. So I made a social post today. That was my first output, so to speak. But I could do a script, I could do a blog. And step one for me, for this agent, was simply pull that information in the morning, have my, what I call my daily amplifying report ready.
Hmm.
And then, because it was just a micro test, I thought, okay, what's one little nugget that I'm seeing as a pattern? So I pulled that, made it into a carousel, and placed it on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Next step would be, ideally, now that you've written this, or we have some skills, there's something called skills now. You give the skills to your AI, and the skill could be like, this is how I write a blog. This is my tone and style. This is my branding voice. Using my branding voice skill set, write me a blog. And then ideally, it would go into the ecosystem that I use as Kit and write something that's a newsletter, or go into WordPress. But I haven't gone that far yet. It does mean that I now need to relieve myself of the stress or fear that, can I give it access to these other accounts? Now, I do know that you can have it write it and not publish it. You can review it, and you can be the one that then pushes the article.
Sure. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
But then imagine, like, not having to spend so much time reading everything. I mean, I love to read and I read a lot, but what if it's just, I just need the key nuggets each morning?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I
Yeah.
like it. Oh, my weekly newsletter is kind of sometimes, don't tell anybody, but it's sometimes the
Only
bane of my
1,000
life. Huh?
only 1,000,000 people.
Oh, yeah. Hundreds of millions of listening to this podcast. No, but seriously, and I'm sure some people can relate, because yeah, what you're describing with this agent could be very handy for someone like me, that, each week on a Thursday, I send out a newsletter, and I've never been one to share like every single nuance of what's happening across all of social media. That's just too overwhelming to me. And I got peers in the industry that do that. You can go follow them and get their newsletters. But my goal is to take, just a few, one or two or three max newsworthy topics, and go a little bit deeper and put my personal spin on it. And my concern around, if I delegate too much of that to AI, is that I'm not really embodying it. I'm not, like, if someone were to, like, ask me in an interview about, "Oh, so Mario, a couple weeks ago you were talking about this subject," and I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, what was that about? I don't even remember because I didn't write it." I'm like, "No, I like to have it come through my physiology so that my output is something like, my output is like an outfit. It's like part of me. I've expressed it through my genes, if you will."
Yeah, absolutely. And this ties to two things I really would love to have you give insight on because
Mm,
you mentioned the way you articulated it, it felt like very human design approach, meaning you are tapping it somatically into what it feels like. You're
mm,
emotionally connecting to what it is, and then you're embodying it before you release something into our our world. And I feel
yes.
the same way. I think I've mentioned I have a couple of different editions that I write, and I'm very deep in all those articles. Like
Mm,
it is all me, but the research, like I'll be like, huh, what is going on in the space of human design and AI? I just made it up.
mhm,
And then I'll go to Perplexity and have it uh, research, like trending articles. Then I'll reflect on it and maybe weave it into the article I'm writing. But the article
yes.
is all me. So I agree that even this agent that I've created, that's going to be more like my daily amplifier,
Mhm.
it is going to be nuggets of what I'm seeing, but
Mm,
through the lens of what matters to me and in my
yes.
voice. And what matters to me right now is the intersection of spirituality, mindfulness, AI, and technology.
Mhm, mhm. I love it. So in essence, what I'm hearing you say is that you're utilizing AI and including now agentic AI to leverage or delegate the initial sorting and filtering because it's too much. It's like a fire hose, right? And nobody has enough hours in the day to read all the newsletters and all the blogs and listen to all the podcasts and look at all the social posts. And it's like many of us have numerous mentors or people that we know and respect, and we like their content. But yeah, there's so little time to really spend dialing all that in and trying to like cherry pick and synthesize. So having this intern, I love that you call an intern, going, "Hey, Shilpa, I stayed up all night. I did this cherry picking for you, and here's your synthesized and brief, if you will, like a daily brief." And leaders of organizations and countries and whatever, they have a similar process where they get this daily brief because they're not going to be the ones that go down into the weeds trying to absorb everything. So I love that. But then it's like, okay, you're not just hitting a button and saying, press this out to the world. You're like, now it's coming through your worldview, your Mm, perspective, of course, your lived experience, and then, yes, from a human design lens through the inner authority. And so you and I are both sacral beings. You're emotional authority, right? The solar plexus. So there's very much an aspect of the feelings are part of it, the emotions, the energy, the passion, the desire, the just how it feels in your body to be able to articulate a certain message. I'm a sacral generator, so my authority is my sacral. And the deeper layers of a human design chart, you've got what's called the tonal cognition, and it's the color. There's a color, and then there's the tone. The tone is the tone. That is, I like to call it your superpower or your super sense, and mine is feeling. And I will catch myself numerous times of just like feeling into something. And that super sense, that tonal cognition informs the authority. So even though I'm not solar plexus emotional authority, there's a large aspect of my process that is very much based on feeling into something, the frequency of it, the vibe of it. And um, yeah, anything that I'm consuming, whether it's information or food, it's like the feeling of the frequency for me is just so important. So then, yeah, I think it's important to like, if you're going to put out a piece of content on social media or a blog or a podcast different because we're having a real live dialogue right here, but it's like, if you're going to do an expression of you, get it out there first. And that's where like the get it out of you. I mean, not out there in the public yet. The voice prompts are really great to just speak extemporaneously. Then all of this is coming through you. It's maybe that's an aspect we were talking about earlier with this pulling in and pulling through the higher self, the wisdom. Then you got the lived experience and all the things. It's coming through you. Now you've got maybe it's just like a big brain dump, right? It's kind of like when you journal or like the what do they call that? Just that kind of automatic writing. And but then it would just might be not really structured well or making a lot of sense to people. Now you bring the AI tool in and go, okay, can you sort all this out and make it, put it into some kind of structure that is explaining what I'm trying to articulate, but don't lose the essence of the voice. And of course, the more you train these tools, the more it seems to get you. Some of the, I would love to know your own experience or opinion on this too, Shilpa, while I'm on this subject. For me, some of the tells these days, certainly I know the M dash. It's like I like to use the M dash. Now I'm like use ellipsis. But AI output seems to really like those short sentence stacks. And like it's almost like nobody writes in paragraphs anymore. And that's because we all like to skim. And now I got a little bit paranoid about, oh my God, okay, if I put this out there, people, oh, she used AI to write that. So I don't know. I'd love to have your perspective on that.
Yeah, I have multiple thoughts on that as well. Um, well, stepping back though, one thing you said when you were just talking about getting your thoughts just out there and using voice mode,
Yeah.
it, I want to start with there because one of the things I started to use is called whisper flow. And have you heard of that?
Oh, I have.
Yeah, and I find it remarkable because there are times I'm a really fast typist,
Mhm.
and but my brain always moves so fast. And
Yes.
so I had a manager when I worked at HP watch me type when we would be in meetings,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, "We're gonna have to keep getting new keyboards for you because he types so fast." Because you would just see the letters just come out. I'm like, "Well,
Uh-huh.
it's just because my brain is moving fast." But then
Mm,
I started to use Whisper Flow recently, and once
mhm.
in a while I forget or I'm just too busy, like I don't want to press that button. But I do it, and it really works because what Whisper Flow, for those who are listening, it's not just capturing text and spitting it out. It's
Mm.
capturing it, synthesizing and organizing it for you into logical patterns. So that when
Wow.
you see it, you're like, oh, okay, now I can take this stream of conscious thinking flow and put it into something and make constructs around it. But
Yes.
what you were saying, like, how do you feel about like? I'm trying to step back. You said the M dash, and then you had a
The
point there.
short sentences, the sentence
Oh, sure.
stacks, they call them.
Yeah. So my first instinct when I started to see that trend in the last 2, 3 years was positive. At first, I thought it was positive because my background is user experience, and
Mm.
I've always cared for how content is displayed because of knowing that humans scan, well, English readers at least scan from left to right
Yeah.
and absorb information faster when you have keywords bolded and it's easier to flow. So
Mhm.
I'm okay with some of that. But
Yep.
you're right. At some point, this trend is also taking us away from being able to just articulate and be flawed and have our LOLs in between a
Right.
sentence. So there's a balance that needs to be found, and I'm still working on it because there are times when I will use that structure and just say, quickly give me output so somebody can read it. But there are other times where I'm like, well, as a writer or as a human, I'm a very verbose. My husband always says, you can keep talking and talking. So, anyways, did I answer your question? I don't
Well, yeah, I like this whisper flow, and I just was checking all my little icons on the top of my Mac here because I really think I downloaded it at one point, and I need to check it out now that you're talking about it and get back to
know.
it. I didn't realize it does the synthesizing thing, so I love that.
Yeah, it's not just capturing, it organizes the thoughts.
Yeah, that's neat. There's another tool I love called Granola AI, and it's a meeting recorder, but it doesn't have to be added. And now, in full disclosure and integrity, yes, get permission. I use it a lot for classes that I'm taking because it's simply recording the transcript, doesn't record an audio or a video. And now what I'm doing is like, okay, it's like a learning aid. because you can prompt it real time as the teacher is instructing. Oh, wait a minute. What did she just say? I missed that. Or could you summarize those last 5 minutes? Or what were the six things she just said? Or he, or whatever it is. And then, they can do a whole lot with the free trial. And then it gives you a full summary, a little bit like Fathom. I use Fathom for all my meetings, but I love this granola as a learning aid.
I know I just learned about granola a few days ago, and it's been on my to-do list to cycle back to it. And again, it's because of this. But going back to the whole agent thing,
Yeah.
once you think about agents from the perspective of that assistant
Yes.
and think about what workflows can I operationalize or automate better so I can take myself away from things that are just low level enough that if I had the budget, I would probably delegate it to some real human, but instead
Yeah.
it's an AI's. And my point is that then if you think about, okay, well, these are the parts I've operationalized, then you think about in terms of workflow, beginning to end. And then you can start pulling in other tools like Granola, like not Whisperflow, because that's the human connection to that tool. But there are other things you can start, like Gamma. You could say, okay, now that I've skimmed this article, tomorrow I'm going to do a little workshop and pull in these key points and create a slide out of it.
Mm, mm, mm.
Another tool that I love that's sort of on point with what you were talking about with Granola, and you're taking a class. I recently took a class called it's a SIM. Well, it's Simulation Hypotheses by oh, Rizwan Burke.
Okay.
And in that class, we were learning so many things about, are we living in a simulation? What is real? Talk about AI. And I was fascinated. So I took this class for several weeks. And then at the end, I was just learning to absorb how to utilize Notebook LM. So I
Yep.
took all of my content, my notes, my links, everything into Notebook LM and created a sim oracle,
Yep.
kind of very much like Matrix, an
Yeah, yeah.
oracle. And inside of that, you can even ask it, like, okay, create an infographic for me, or
That's right.
yeah, a quiz card, flashcards,
Mind map. Mhm.
mind map. So, see, that's the power that on the other end of AI. And unlike other LLMs, like say ChatGPT or Claude or what have you, that Notebook LM is your second brain. It's your
Yes.
ecosystem. It's not pulling from outside unless you've given it links to pull from outside.
Yeah. I love it. Notebook LM is awesome. I invariably will stumble across some amazing YouTube videos, as I mentioned earlier, and I find I will just play it at like 1.6 or 2.0 speed. I speed everything up, and when I'm feeding the cats or doing the dishes or putting my makeup on or whatever, I just puttering some background knowledge, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that was so good," and I'll be like, "Okay, wait, but that part there, I need to save that part, or I need to annotate that part." And so I drop it in Notebook LM, like you're saying, just do these amazing infographics or notes or prompting it, and it might be like a 20-minute or 2-hour video, whatever it is, publicly available there, and so yeah, that's by Google. Google's Notebook LM. There's probably a bazillion use cases for it that I haven't even tapped into, but,
Are
hey,
you
by the
using a
way,
plugin?
what's that?
There's a plugin. So if you're on YouTube and you
Oh,
see an
yeah,
article you like, you can,
yeah,
I have the
video.
plugin. So now I just press the button called Notebook LM and it'll basically automatically connect
Creates a
to that
notebook.
part. Yeah.
So when you see a video you like, you mean? Or just
The
an
video
article?
like, yeah.
Anything.
So like the other day I saw a video about an ex-CEO from Google talking about um AI, and he made a certain quote. And I thought, I need to use that quote for
Mm,
my next article. So I went to the YouTube page where that video was. Underneath it, I could see my button from the plugin, Notebook
yeah.
LM. And then it took me to my Notebook LM and told it which folder to place that article in.
Yeah, I love it. That's brilliant. Okay, I gotta check that out because it's probably not just videos because you can do all kinds of sources, right? You can even upload your own and yeah, I'm actually in the middle of writing my own mother's, biography. And, it was a project I started a few years ago, and then I dropped the ball a bit, and now I'm like, "Okay, mom, she's a trooper. She's gonna be 83 in July," and I'm like, "I need to circle back to that project." And when I first started it, I wasn't as dialed into some of the AI tools. And then I started to prompt ChatGPT, and I'm like, what would you suggest as a workflow? I got something like 12 hours of recorded Zooms. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start because I'm like, okay, first I need them transcribed. I wasn't using Fathom at the time. So I need them transcribed. I need to have them all sorted and ordered and like, and then extract out of that my mother's life story. So, and I was like, I think I'm going to use Notebook LM, right? But anyway, ChatGPT gave me a number of different tool suggestions and to take it all the way through to a published book, you know? And I was like, to be clear though, this is not like for the public. This is just a private thing for my mother. So it'll probably end up being, you know, like an electronic version, and then maybe we'll make a print version. But
Well, you just gave me an idea because my dad always wanted to write his story of coming from India. And for his whole life, he's been saying, I want to write a book. And I suddenly a light bulb went off like, I'm going to teach him how to use Notebook LM and start pulling those stories.
yes, or you could interview him, or someone
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
That's
I can interview him. Yeah.
yeah, and then you have the content and just pour it all in there and have a dad oracle in your notebook, LEM.
Yeah, absolutely. Then, before we um, forget that point, I really want you to maybe provide an insight because all of this is about the human touch
Mhm.
and keeping us at the center, recognizing that there's a greater purpose behind what we're doing, which is,
Yes.
I believe, self realization. And
Mm,
at the heart of it is also recognizing that, and I know this is like a little bit woo for people, but that we're a soul and we're so much bigger.
yeah.
And knowing that, what is the empowerment knowledge you can bring to the table about human design and really how that lens helps us know ourselves?
Yeah. Well, as you know, Shilpa, I'm just incredibly passionate about the human design system. I had my very first foundation reading in the early 2000s. I think it was like 2003. And clearly the timing wasn't right for me. And I had the reading, didn't make any sense to me. It's a bunch of weird hieroglyphics, and all I could remember, the analyst said, Mari, you have a really busy mind. It's probably hard for you to meditate. And then it kind of danced in and out of my life over the years. And I remember some friends of mine would say, okay, yeah, you're a sacral generator. Pay attention to your aha and And it was very mental. And so I'm like, do I even say aha and And it was just too heady. And it wasn't until winter solstice of 2020. And I might have shared this story with you the last time we had a podcast chat. But real quick, what it was, a dear, dear friend of mine was coming over to my house when I lived in San Diego at the time, and a little girlfriend sleepover during COVID. And she said, hey, Mario, she's a emotional manifesting generator. Has everything defined but the head and the root. Beautiful soul. One of my dearest friends, she's like, Mari, my intuition just for some reason told me I was supposed to bring this book over to you. And she reaches into her purse and shows me this book, and it's a book on human design. That moment to this day, it literally brings tears to my eyes because all of a sudden I'm like, that's what's meant by a sacral response. The energy in my whole body went whoosh, arms in the air, jumped out of my chair. I'm like, human design. I mean, this was an exaggerated response, not like every response is like that. And my sacral is unconsciously defined with the 214. That's the strength of direction, the beat, the keeper of the keys. And so, and then it's split off from the rest of my all my definition is up here, head, ajna, and throat. And so when I just from that moment onwards, I went and just immersed myself into this body of knowledge. And so for my foundation reading, I sought out someone who had studied directly with Ra and who ideally was a generator type. And if possible, was even the same profile as me. I'm a 1-3, an investigator, martyr, pioneer, the person that learns by trial and error, making mistakes and experimenting and making and breaking bonds. That's just what the third line does. And so I found a 1-3, and that was Richard Bowman. He's the head of Human Design UK, and he's been doing human design, I want to say maybe 30 years. He has a wonderful YouTube channel, and he learned directly from Ross. So then in my foundation reading with him, that's when it really landed. And I'm like this really intellectual, well-defined head, like I say, ajna and throat. And I got this sacral down here going, hello, we're your authority. And I'm saying to Richard, wait, what? My body has intelligence. My body makes decisions. And so that was just revelationary to me. And it's been a long, slow process because so many of us are deeply conditioned to live in our heads and think that our minds are the decision making, our minds are the boss of us. And the truth of the matter is our minds, all of our intelligence and our experience and memories and training, whatever, subject we've gone into, is for others. It's what's called an outer authority. I'm an outer authority in the field of social media marketing. And now becoming, I hesitate to say the words, but becoming an authority in the human design field, because it takes initially as a 7-year cycle to decondition from letting the not self mind running our lives. And so relating that back to the whole world of technology and AI and the human touch, and leaning into building these deeply connected communities, which is ideally a blend of online and offline. I mentioned the offline club at the beginning of our talk here today. It's tuning into this body felt wisdom, whatever is your authority. It's either that solar plexus, almost half the world, 47%, is taking their time, feeling into it, letting the waves of emotion, giving yourself 24 hours for big decisions at least, sleeping on it. Then the sacral decision makers like myself. The third most common is called the splenic, where it's only 10% of the world, and then there's 4 other types of authority, but it's the splenic is that in the moment, it's that spidey sense, that intuition, that hunch of like, go this way. And then the mind goes, wait, what? That way? The last time we went that way, we got in trouble, or whatever, all the nonsense the mind makes up. But so it's of all the possible things that you could know in human design, type is important. And I almost sometimes think that even more important is that authority. What is your body wisdom way that you were genetically imprinted with at birth and 88 days prior for the unconscious, roughly 88, the unconscious design body imprint, which combined, you've got this Ra would call this forced marriage. It's basically we're the sum of the both, right? So it's the conscious and the unconscious, and we're synthesized. You can't pull them apart. So that's the part for me that's been challenging initially, is to recognize, this is part of me down here, which is unconscious and split off from the rest. So how can I really trust it? Well, I can trust it when I feel that energy rising and I feel that pulling forward, and that resonance. There's like a frequency resonance, as opposed to my no is this contracting, this backing away, almost repelling, like when you get the opposite ends of a magnet. Sometimes it can be a real repelling, and sometimes it's very subtle. And the moment I find myself in my mind looping around and around and trying to decide something, oh, okay, well, I'm thinking and thinking. Whoa, wait, no thinking required. This circle is just boom. Is it yes or is it no? If it's neither, it's like not sure, maybe it's not the right timing. Or if somebody's asking you, ideally for the 2/3 of the world that are the generator types, which includes the manifesting generator, it's have people around you ask you yes, no questions. That's where that it's not coming from the throat. It's an instant response. It's coming from the sacral. And usually for someone like me, where I'm split off, it's going to be like a sound. It'll be mm-hmm, mm-mm. Even I did that. It was like the body even moves with the or the it was like leaning forward. And so the inarticulate sound. So that was a long explanation and answer to your question, but I'm bringing it back that I really feel strongly about this type and strategy. Us generative types, our strategy is to respond to the world. We're not supposed to be going around and initiating and forcing and pushing and trying to get things started. That's the job of the manifestors. They're here to initiate. We're here to respond. We're the builders in the business language of human design. It's called the builder. We're here to really build. We're the worker bees. We got consistent, reliable access to that buzz sacral energy. So that's a thing, coming back to this Inner authority is really trusting your body's wisdom. And by the way, I quickly looked up your own super sense. I mentioned earlier about the super sense, which informs the authority. So, and yours is what's called inner vision. You have this rich inner world. You're probably a brilliant meditator. Only you have defined head and ajna like me as well. But the inner vision for you, when you're feeling where you're wanting to make that body wisdom decision, is having a moment to close your eyes, and even just a moment to just go within or even just lower the gaze, that will inform better decisions for you. And so that's you. You even meditate. I'd imagine you get all kinds of insights in your meditation because that is your super sense. It's called inner. It's the opposite of outer vision. So anyway, that was a long-winded answer. I hope that sparked some things for you.
Well, absolutely. And there are multiple things that come to mind. Just on a side note, though, I recall close to a year and a half ago, maybe longer, you and I had a conversation about human design where I realized that this term of clarion,
Yes.
um, raw, for those who are not familiar, I believe he basically defined this field of human design, correct?
Oh, Japan, it came to him. He likes to call himself the first messenger or the first student, but he had an 8-day mystical experience on the island of Ibiza. And for lack of a better term, he literally called it the voice, where a voice spoke to him. But it was an experience that penetrated him to the core. And he was able to annotate and write down everything for 8 days and nights straight. The system was given to him. It's a fusion of astrology and the Chinese I Ching and the chakras and Kabbalah, quantum physics and genetics and biology is phenomenal.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I definitely want the viewers to know is that it's a fusion of an embodied set of knowledge that he was able to then articulate so that people can then have a more deeper lens into themselves, conscious, unconscious, and understanding. And I think really a lot of this information that you've shared is about better tuning into one's intuition.
Mhm.
That's just my take on it because I recently had a podcast recording where the sum total of my awareness is that up till now, like maybe a lot of people think of intuition as woo, spiritual,
Mm,
but what is intuition is an embodied information.
mm,
And when you were talking about having a sacral knowledge or having a feeling, that is intuition, but coming in from the body embodiment of the physical. But perhaps that information is also coming from unconscious and conscious spaces. But, yeah, one thing I recall, though, is isn't Ra's birthday on my birthday, April 9th?
You guys have the same birthday. So does my older sister. You're all clarions. You're here to sound that clarion horn. Doo, 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 doo. You've got a big message, and you are 5'1". So yeah, so same cross, same life theme. So that clarion is literally called your life theme. And then we go through cycles, right? At age 30, 40, 50, you got your Saturn, Uranus, Chiron, etc. Each decade from 30 onwards, there's a pretty significant additional layer or flavor to your life theme. And
Mhm.
so that has an aspect. Now, I was just checking your chart too, because you do have the 5720, which is, and the 5734, and then that's fully conscious. So there's an aspect of you that with the brainwave, the channel of power, the channel of charisma, that you're highly intuitive. Like your intuition, unlike others who have different designs, is conscious and always on, and it's not your authority unless there's like some danger or something. So that's a tricky part about someone like you with your design, is you can be really in the moment and really intuitive and have a spontaneous hit to go and do something spontaneously. But then it's like, whoa, wait a minute, this is a pretty major decision. I'd better sleep on it. So it's like the horse
Totally.
is rearing to go, but you're like, wait, whoa,
Yeah.
slow down
Well,
there.
I just finished a whole series. I'm not even finished. It's my undercurrent theme for this year's podcast and my personal growth is truly understanding intuition. And one of the
Wow.
epiphanies I've just had, here I am in my 50s, and I had this epiphany like, well, wait a minute. My intuition has always been spot on. I just needed to lower the entropy and the noise to trust it.
Yes. That's the thing. Now, here's to be fair and to be clear, just to fill in a gap here for your listeners, is that, everybody has intuition. And the way that they would explain the body graph is like with the 9 centers, and there's 36 possible channels, 64 gates, so on and so forth. And the definition, what's colored in, what's defined in you, the channels in the centers, that's consistent, reliable, and always on. There's only one type, is the reflectors. 1.5% of the world don't have anything colored in. They got all these like potentials. They got what's called hanging gates or dormant potentials. And they're really here to see difference and reflect and be objective and yeah, incredible beings. They're called evaluators in the business language. I know many reflectors. And so the thing to recognize is, what I'm saying is to tap into what's always on in you, your definition, coupled with your profile and then you got your cycles and your type and strategy and for sure your authority. And so like someone like me, I have a totally open spleen. And so that can be that the open centers are where the not self shows up. So for me, that's like holding on to things long after they're good for me and out of safety and security. The splenic center is where you have the health and the well-being and safety and security. It's the oldest awareness center. It's where our survival is. And so what I learned over the years is like, okay, in the not self, that can look like a lot of fear. Fear of this, fear of that, fear of tomorrow, fear of responsibility. In the true self, the wisdom self, the wise self, it can look like fearlessness. It can look like someone who's jumped out of an airplane with, what just feels like a sack of laundry on your back, otherwise known as a parachute. I did that in my 20s. I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane 6 different times. Of course, I was dating a skydive instructor at the time, so I had something to do with it. But I can tap into that's kind of my own touchstone when I think of the totally open spleen with the fear, the possible wise fearlessness. I'm like, okay, I did that. Yeah, that was scary as heck, but I'm still here to live to tell the tale, and I'll be fine, So yeah, all the white centers is where the not self shows up. And 65% of the world has the open heart center. That's where the willpower and the self-worth and the ego, healthy ego is. In the not self, it's not feeling good enough, trying to prove and improve and to compete and stay in control. And we end up creating all these bodily health issues when we're living in that not self. And I've often thought on social media, you can clearly see these 2/3 of the world that are with the open heart center, willpower center, because there's an inordinate amount of comparing and contrasting and competing and jockeying for position. And oh my God, you're only good if you have this many followers and all that nonsense that we've been homogenized and conditioned to believe.
Well, and when you were talking about not self, non-self, again, spiritually, the lens that I come with when I hear that is contraction.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we're contracted, then it is that ego that comes to the forefront, the fear that comes to the forefront, and recognizing what state am I in at the moment. That was interesting that you brought that up, because the word that I um, created for myself for 2026 is amplify, but
Neat.
amplify not from being louder
Mm,
necessarily, because that's never been my style. Not,
mm.
but louder from amplifying my true essence and
Oh,
resonating from that place.
that's beautiful. Yeah. And you're one of the 1/3 of the world that has a defined heart center, the ego, with that 4037. So, and that's right now in the nodes. So it's very, very strong part of the background frequencies. It's about community and belonging and family and tribal, mutually supportive bargains. That's part of your genetic expression, and having a healthy sense of self and courage and willpower. That's always on for you. And so so that's an aspect of you that you can prove. And then the totally open G center, that diamond in the middle, is like you can be, oh my gosh, so many roles, so many hats you can wear. chameleon-like in social situations. Environment is so important to you. We've talked about this before. It's a beautiful thing. And then when I just reflected on this second about your background in tech and AI, it's like you were doing AI long before ChatGPT came on the scenes, unlike other, AI experts. So you have this breadth and depth of technological knowledge, and then you've been a Yogananda devotee for an enormous amount of times. You bring it in this spiritual part of you. So it's like I'm thinking that with your Open G Center, which is about the identity in love and direction, is that you're fusing all of these parts, as we mentioned at the beginning of our chat today. They might appear disparate, but they are actually incredibly integral and related and interconnected, and you're like a living embodiment of how you're connecting them all.
Well, you mentioned some very, I'm just getting chills and almost in tears. Like, I feel like I've come full circle.
Hmm.
I just wrote about this in one of my articles back in the 1990s, when I needed to choose an area of focus in college in computer science. I chose software design, and then AI was now being offered. I thought, that sounds fascinating. I'll go into this area of focus. That series was my only series where I got straight A pluses.
Wow.
And I ended up doing what probably people now call a micro app back then, that was based on natural language processing, which led to a variety of other things. I write about this in my blogs and my newsletter. But the gist of it was, I got to a point where I really thought there was something there, but I was told it was a dead end and I
Wow.
should not go, try to pursue further education in natural language processing, which was something I really wanted to know about,
Mm.
particularly because I had studied Sanskrit and I understood language from a different lens. Any case, I walk away, I end up doing user experience, and I kept thinking, why did I do that? So a year ago, I did something and experimented. I wrote a micro course, all audio, and it came with AI tools that I built. So it allows you to reflect, and it was called Pivot with Purpose.
Neat.
Yeah. Well, and again, I didn't trust myself because somebody reviewed it and she said, nobody wants to come to you if they want to study AI, but here it's through their lens of spirituality and mindfulness. Well, why are you blending these two? Keep them separate. Well, that
Mm.
was a year ago. And then I happened to be in your workshop with Derek, and I'm like, somebody gets me. They've combined computer science and spirituality. So I've come full circle
Oh,
because it's taken me my whole life, though, to get to that place where I can trust that intersection.
mm,
So I
mm.
kept thinking, why? Why am I doing what I'm doing? There are no words to articulate it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. It was very fortuitous that that caught your attention, and back in February there,
Yeah.
where I was interviewing Derek, and oh, he's such a good soul. I've known him maybe 10, 15 years. And yeah, and his book is just phenomenal, A Whole New Human. And I just anytime I see that word human, we were talking offline a wee bit about that, where it's just like got these programs coming up talking about the human advantage and human-centered marketing, and it ties directly into my love of human design. And so it's yeah, I think we're going to be really seeing more and more of this fusion of the tech, and then looking through the lens of AI as it really being a helper, an aid, an assistant, a tool that can free up time, like you said earlier, free up time for study of the self, or just more self knowledge, more self reflection, more integrated, more wholeness. Um,
More community.
More community, unquestionably. That is the rise of the new frequency. The sleeping phoenix, she's going to be waking up after 412 years, and February 15, 2027, not like a light bulb will flip on or a switch will be flipped. We're already in the midst of the breaking down of the old structures, all the infrastructure of the institutions and government schools, all the systems. It's painful. We're literally, all of us collectively in the world, we're going through massive labor pains. And what's being birthed, though, is that's where we got to keep our eye on it, keep our eye on the horizon of something even more brilliant that we can even imagine is coming. And many of us will get to witness it in this lifetime, because it's not like it's going to be instantaneous come February of 27, but over this ensuing decades, we're going to be having a quite a different lifestyle. And you mentioned about community. It's this aspect of us being able to be these sovereign, autonomous individuals who are taking back our authority. No, that's not correct for me. Yes, this is correct for me. My body is saying this is what's right for me. And then there's others going, well, I totally honor that. My body's saying this is okay. This is what's for me. And so having this, can you just even imagine a world of this interconnectedness where we can co-create, collaborate, function interdependently, but also each of us completely sovereign, having our own agency. And there's incredible mutual respect around that. Nobody's pointing the finger saying, well, oh, you can't think that way. You can't do that. You need to do this. You need to do that. No, nobody can tell me what I can or can't do. I've got authority over my own body and life and journey. And so have you.
Absolutely. That is such a beautiful way to wrap this conversation. I could talk to you for hours and go deeper even, but I really feel like that was a synthesis. You are able to connect with others better when you know yourself better.
Yes. Thank you, Shilpa. Well, as we were saying, your life theme is to be that clarion, that messenger, to sound the horn, to wake people up. It's part of your chosen mission. Mine is about explanation. I got all these activations in my throat.
Yeah.
I'm literally here to synthesize complex topics and explain them in ways that ultimately land with people, so they're mutated, they're transformed, they hear things differently, they it just lands in a way that, like, oh, okay, now I've got a different viewpoint. In some ways that's what's helped me with my Facebook career, because it's very complex and it's always changing, and so I've been like an explainer of how to make social media more accessible for people. And then now I'm bringing in the lens of human design, which has brought so much more satisfaction to my career.
I can see that. And it's also probably given you a new lens of your why. Like 'cause I've shared with you for the longest time, I was like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I drawn to certain things?
Mm,
And you were already doing it before you had the lens, and now you have the aha. Like now I
that's
get it.
yeah.
Mari,
Sure.
lovely day. Bye.
Bye bye.